What's up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and right now I'm going to be covering advancement strategy and all the stuff you need to know as far as changes according to mapping and advancing in your mapping. So it's going to be kind of a mishmash of strategies that I use to advance from a season start to also the stuff that you need to be aware of. This is after they released their manifesto. They did finally release it 3 days out from launch. 3 days out is better than 2 or 1 day. So at least they did wind up releasing it. There was a lot of stuff in there. Luckily, they didn't wind up like completely shitting on any builds. I will say they did wind up buffing the ice shot build in a roundabout way by buffing ballista damage efficiency, which in the end game build is going to equal about 600 to like 800,000 average DPS over the three ballistas. So that's a pretty nice bonus. Um, Ice shots is looking even better. I went through all the cluster jewels also, and there are going to be some nasty combinations for that. So am 100% going for the ice shot because there was no nerfs. In fact, there's buffs. So yeah, that's a big thumbs up. Anyways, so when we first get out of Axe and we're going to start advancing and mapping, you are going to want to pay attention to a few things. The biggest one is you're immediately going to want to start buying all of the maps that Xana is offering to you. The maps, and this is until you reach tier 12. At tier 12, you're going to kind of have to decide if the cost is worth the maps. Why is it that at tier 12? Because once you get into the red maps at tier 11, you can't see, I guess. Tier 11, they still cost alchemies and orbs of chance. Once you get to tier 12 or higher, they start costing chaos. The cheapest being tier 12 is 4 chaos. Um, so that's why I'm saying, at tier 12, it might not be worth it. Depending on how you're running, how much currency you have, if you need the map, it might be worth the 4 chaos to you. If you're running really poorly, like I tend to run really unlucky, and I've got to abuse my currency really smartly if I want to do well during the season, because I'm not one of those people that runs really lucky. In fact, quite the opposite. This last league, it took me like 2,000 fusing orbs to hit my first 6 link. The season before that, I think I spent like close to 4,000, and I still wind up having to buy my first 6 links. So um, I'm I'm not the player that my stuff works because I run lucky. It's quite the opposite. The stuff that I do works regardless of me running shitty in the beginning of pretty much every single league I can remember. Hopefully this league I'll have some better luck, but I'm not expecting it. So buy all the maps. Some people, I mean, if you're really struggling on currency, you could wind up checking, being like, do I have that map? Looking in here like, hey, do I have any of that map? Checking your completion. Do I have completion for that yet? I don't do that. I mean, honestly, the prices on these when they're really low, they're just so cheap. I'm pretty much going to buy all of them. You're talking about orbs of chance and then going into orbs of alchemy once you get into yellow maps. So I'm just going to buy all of them. I'm not going to really worry about that small amount of currency. I want those maps. The thing is, you want to pay attention to what she's giving you and you want to be completing them because, as usual, we're going to be needing our map completion. The other thing that you're going to want to pay attention to besides buying maps from Xana is the Xana Master Missions. The Xana Master Missions, the way I use them all the time is I always am using them for the highest tier that they have. So for white maps, tier 5 is the highest that a white map goes to. Why is it that I only use Xana missions on a tier 5 for my white missions? Because it gives me a bump up into yellow maps. So then when I'm playing a yellow map that she's given me, because she gives us the chance to do maps that are one tier higher, she gives me that. I'm going to jump into a tier 6 map. I'm going to have the chance for tier 6 and tier 7 maps because, I have the drop chance for one higher. Same thing with the yellow maps. Going into the yellow maps, I'm only going to be using the yellow tier for the tier 10s. Tier 10s. Because that's going to give me a chance to get up into the red tier maps. I always try to rush into the red tier maps as fast as possible, because even if I can't push all the way up into the tier 16s because my character, maybe my gear is lagging behind, I'm going to at least try to start playing at that tier 10. Why? Because then I can start getting red master missions. Using red master missions is going to be a way to boost your income. If I'm not that strong and I'm still having to run, the easier red tier maps, I can still be saving up those red tier master missions, so when I do get to those tier 16s, I can cash in on them. Which Xana, the red tier maps, are going to be super profitable. Why is that? Because at a tier 16 red master Xana, all of the maps she's going to be offering are going to be tier 16, which is going to give me a chance for all of the synthesized maps and all 8 of the Guardian maps, which super early. Getting Guardian maps is going to be super profitable. If you're running the Ice Shot build, killing Guardians is what's going to get you the pieces to be able to make your Arborix bow. So if you can't afford to buy one off the market, then you're going to want to save those, because if when you get to tier 16 maps, if you have a bunch of red tier Xana missions, once you're able to start completing those tier 16 maps, you're going to have more chances to kill Guardians, which is going to give you chances for fragments, which is going to give you chances for the pieces for your Arborix, which all of that stuff is important. Also, the absolute lowest that I would try to use a Xana would be tier 14. Really, because this season they've kind of nerfed the 2 tier up thing. They winded up making it so that the awaken bonus isn't going to give a, second tier up. You're really going to have to kind of cut it to tier 15 for those, because that's kind of me. The only time that I'm going to break these rules is in this one scenario, because I'm trying to tell you guys how I play. I'm not giving you some load of shit that doesn't work or some hypothetical thing. This is how I actually play. This is how I do well every single season. The only time that I'm going to use a Xana mission outside of these rules that I have set up for you is if I'm in a situation where I'm struggling to get my higher tier maps and I'm ready to advance. Basically, my character is strong enough to continue advancing in the Atlas, but I don't have a lot of those maps. Say I'm into tier 14 maps and I only have 1 tier 14 and 3 tier 13s. This means I'm kind of in a place where, if that tier 14 map doesn't drop me a map, then I can't continue doing a tier 14 map. I can't have a chance to get any more of the tier 15s. Now I'm going to be pushed down into my tier 13s, or even if I only have a couple of my highest tier left, I'm probably going to go ahead and use this animation. Why is that? Because then it's going to be giving me 2 chances to get those higher tier maps that I need. Plus, when I get a Xana at my highest tier map, she's going to open up a map for me that is going to be a tier 15. Unless all of the maps that she's offering that are tier 15 are uncompletable for me, I'm going to be doing a tier 15, which is going to be giving me tier 15 map drops, so a map higher than what I'm at, and it's also going to be giving me a chance for the tier 16s. So I'm not going to save those missions and shoot myself in the foot in the process and wind up only having low tier maps that then I have to hopefully grind up to get back to where my highest tier missions are. That's not something that I want to do. That's not going to be productive. Saving that one extra mission is not going to be worthwhile in that case. So that's pretty much covered. The only other things that we need to cover about the Atlas has been changed how it works. If you look at how my Atlas is right now, I have all of my watchstones in besides these 8 stones. However, I have an Awakener level of 0. This is the way that it's worked all season. This is the way they introduced it. You have to have 4 socketed into each region in order to gain 1 Awakener level. That's not how it's going to be working this next season. This next season, for every 4 that are socketed into the Atlas, you're going to gain 1 Awakener level. So right now, I would have an Awakener level of 6 because I have 8 stones out, you know, each 4 equals 1 Awakener level, 2 minus the 8, I would be at an Awakener level of 6. This is important to pay attention to because, for instance, if your character is weak and you still want to kill Sirius, or you still want to do whatever, if you have all this stuff in and you're expecting to fight a level 0 Sirius, it's actually going to be spawning him at an Awakener level of 6. So if you're not paying attention to this and you don't know how it's been working and you're just assuming that it's working the way that it's been working for the whole last season, the entire time Conquerors has been out, you're going to wind up with a very unpleasant surprise because you're going to wind up with a Awakener level 6 Cirrus. So pay attention to that. That's a pretty big thing. Something else I want to touch in, you see I've got all these sextants in here. I want to touch on sextant farming because sextant farming is a big thing and it is a big tool. Especially early, I like to use my simple sextants. This season, currently, you get 6 packs, which the most common rolls are the pack sizes. So that's why I'm touching on this because it's kind of like the bottom end roll. Um, so it was 6, and then 8 packs for our prime sextant, and then it was 10 packs for our Awakened Sextant. This is going to get nerfed down a little bit, but it's still going to wind up being higher than it started at this season. Originally, this season we were at 3 packs, 3 packs, 3 packs, 4 packs, 5 packs, I believe, and I believe they doubled it. Well, now it's going to come down into a middle zone where it's going to be 4 packs for the simple, um, 6 packs for Prime, 8 packs for Awakened. This is still really dope. The thing that I want to say is the cost of running Awakened Sextants one time is the same cost of running the simple Sextants 9 times. So early, having all those extra packs inside of your map is going to be super advantageous. And by using simple sextants, it's going to be really cheap to do that. This is something I like to do when I'm trying to rush character levels. I just basically use cheap sextants as a way to boost the amount of monsters inside of a map very cheaply. It also winds up being very profitable because there's so much extra monsters. It's just so much extra chance for stuff to drop. Obviously, once I can afford to, I move into the higher tier sextants. And the nice thing about this league is you will be able to vendor recipe. You will be able to trade in the your sextants. So if I put in my simple sextants, every 3 is going to give me 1 prime sextant. If I put in the prime sextants, this would give me back 2 awakened sextants because each 3 equals 1 of the higher tier. So that's going to be a nice thing to pay attention to. The thing that I want to touch on for as far as resources, the way that I strategize with resources is I try to save all of my resources for buffing up maps until I get to a place where I'm doing the highest tier maps. Because the thing you have to know or remember is that the higher tier map you're on, you have a higher base drop rate for currency and items. You also get higher tier items. So you don't want to be, say I'm running badly and I've got my drops. I don't want to be shooting myself in the foot by being like, shit, I'm not getting drops, so I'm going to invest in these lower tier maps. That's just throwing away currency. That's throwing away the little bit of currency that I do have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save all those things, like save my sextants. I'm going to save those till I get to that higher tier, and then I'm going to use all my buffs like I'm doing with my masters. I'm going to be saving those till I hit that higher tier so I can get the most out of the resources that I have gotten. It's super important if you want to do well early to use the resources that you do get as smartly as possible. That holds true for your upgrades. That holds true for how you're investing in maps. So that's something you want to pay attention to. That's the same thing with all this stuff. Your vol fragments, your scarabs. You want to be using them when they're going to be the most profitable because the stuff that you have, I don't really like to sell the stuff that I get. I like to take and use it to try and generate more income. That's how I play because I try to minimize my trading and maximize what I'm gaining off of all the resources that I get. In fact, I wind up normally buying all of these resources because normally I'm not going to wind up getting enough, you know, uh, vol orbs. And when I start voling everything, I'm probably not going to be able to sustainably vol every single map. I'm probably going to have to get a small little supplement. They normally don't go down that much, but same thing with chisels. I'm going to have to probably buy some chisels. But don't be chiseling stuff when, I ain't ready to vol my map and I don't have a ton of resources. I'm not going to be chiseling my maps at, lower tier maps, 15, 15, 14, 13, 12. I'm not going to waste my chisels. I'm going to wait till they're going to be the most profitable for me till I'm doing the tier 16s. Then I'll have a little bit of them stocked up, so I'll have a little starter income to run my beefed up maps. So that's how you want to do it. As far as advancing in the difficulty of the maps that you're doing, you can roll easy maps. The If you don't know how to do this, like say for instance, I can do higher tier maps, but I'm kind of getting close to that area where I'm not able to do them. I still want to be advancing my atlas. I still want to be getting completion. The way that you can do that is by making easy maps. It's pretty easy. You just take a gray map, use an orbit transmute. You can use an orbit alteration to re-roll it. This one I'm like, them having power charges and 2 bosses, not a big deal. I'm going to regal orbit. And what did I get? Critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier. I might be like, that could give him some big hits. That might not work. I could start over, or I could be like, that's not that big of a deal. There's nothing debilitating on those rolls. I'm gonna go and run that. It's a pretty easy map for me. Those are the kind of things that you can do to make it so that you can push a little bit higher. When is it that you want to be pushing higher like this? There's a couple breaking points that you want to be reaching in order to be increasing your earnings. Getting into red maps. If you're, say, at like tier 9 and tier 10, breaking into red maps is a little bit hard for you. You're not going to be completing every single one. In order to do red tier maps, if you can't consistently beat them, do this. Why is that? Because it's going to start giving you red tier missions, which are essentially currency. Because these red masters, they work all the way from 10 to 16. So simply getting into red maps and starting to collect these master missions to then use later to gain currency is pretty important. The other time is breaking into tier 14. Why is this? Because it's going to give us the chance when we get the blight encounters that we are going to be able to get blight maps that are going to be the most profitable, which tier 14 is like kind of like a sweet spot, like a stepping point, like tier 10, tier 14, tier 16. Tier 14 gives us a chance for all the synthesized maps. It also gives us a chance for half of the guardian maps, the 4 new ones. It's not going to give us a chance for the original 4 guardians because those are tier 16 only. When we're at tier 15, we have like, a percentage chance based on our completion because maps can drop 1 level higher, which means it's possible to get those other 4 maps on a tier 15 map, but it's not really likely. Tier 16, you're able to get all of them. So those are kind of your pushing points. Tier 10, tier 14, tier 16. But a tier 14 is a pretty nice spot because, like I said, you can get all of the synthesized maps. You can get half the Guardian maps. Your Blight maps are going to be more rewarding because, tier 14, you can get golden oils. I think you can actually get them at tier 13, but tier 14 is kind of a sweet point because all synthesized maps and good blight maps and so on and so forth. Those are kind of going to be my pushing points for this season. That being said, if you are really struggling as far as gear, since the Atlas is working in a new way this season, completing your Atlas is going to be beneficial for you. It's something that you're going to have to do regardless at some point. You don't necessarily have to be going for 4 stones in a zone because of the way that the new system is working. We can be scaling our Awakener level, and we can be getting our completion bonus, so we have higher chances for maps, better sustainability. This is going to be something that's important that everyone's going to have to do. You're going to have to get map completion. So pushing your map completion, if you're too weak to be consistently completing higher tier maps, it's something that's beneficial for you that's going to pay off in the long run. So work on your completion early if you're struggling to push higher into harder maps. If you've been getting good gear and you're just crushing the maps that you're at, then it might be worthwhile to push into those higher tiers and start getting currency right away to snowball your build. But if you're not at a place where your gear is really strong and you're able to complete those harder maps, do what it is that you can do to help yourself when it's the best time to do that. Which, if I'm too weak to push it all the way up into those tier 14, 15, 16 maps, then I want to do something that's going to be beneficial for me. So I'm going to work on completion. So I'm going to be trying to only do maps that are connected to maps that I don't have. So I have drop chances for maps. I'm going to be working on completion on other zones because I could have done none of my 4th quests and I would have an Awakener level of 6 at this point. And, if I wind up doing that, I'm sure my gear in that many maps is going to have scaled quite a bit. So then I probably will be able to go back and go ahead and finish my Awakener bonuses and basically complete my Atlas. Um, those are my strategies as far as advancement and my strategies on how I'm going to do things. some other things that have changed that you're going to want to pay attention to. This is a really cool one that is getting changed this league. So from the very beginning of the league, you will be able to, as soon as you hit maps, click on your atlas and you will be able to see all of the mods that are on your atlas. I've already covered the atlas mods and what I'll be doing with those. So if you haven't seen that and you don't know like what's going to be the best and how to use them, go watch that video. The cool thing is though, is every league there's stuff we have to do to unlock our Xana modifiers. This league, you will be able to see all of the modifiers that are available, and simply by hovering over them, say I don't have Legion undone, which will be Blight this next league, I can just hover over it and it will tell me what it is that I have to do in order to unlock that. The thing that I want to say about that is another change. Previously, the way Xana has always worked as the mods unlock through, well, her level unlocks through completion bonuses, which is usually tied to the modifiers. The thing that I will say is they have changed that. It's not based off of just map completion now. It is based off of the the completion quests. So it's not just going to be the maps. It will also be some of the bonuses. So you do want to pay attention to that because if, for instance, one of the mods that you want to be playing with says you need to get her to max level to unlock it, then now you know how you're going to be able to unlock that because you're going to have to be doing some completion quests. I don't think that they're going to wind up making it so that you have to complete every single thing on the entire thing. Um, I don't think they would do that because I don't think I ever do full completion just because it's not. I'm not. I'm not one of those people that like. What is it? What is it? I forget what it's called. There's a name for it. I'm sure there's some people out there that have to, but I'm not one of those people. So there's another big change that is going to be super beneficial that you should be aware of. This is probably one of the biggest things changes this season and going to be one of the most beneficial things as far as mapping, which this is a mapping league. So this is something you're going to want to pay attention to. Okay, so bonuses for completing Atlas bonus objectives and Awakening bonus objectives have changed. You will no longer gain additional chance for maps to drop one tier higher from Awakening bonus objectives. The base chance to gain, which that's kind of important, like, basically this isn't going to be scaling that. We'll still have the regular increase though. The base chance to gain an Atlas mission upon map completion is now 35% from 40%. This might sound really bad. You're like, shit, we're losing 5% chance. Still a third base, but this is what makes it really good. You will now gain 1% chance to gain an Atlas mission upon map completion per 15 maps with Awaken bonus objective complete. This is huge. This means that we can get a 100% chance for an Atlas mission if you do enough maps on a completed Awaken bonus map, which, if you're grinding maps, this will happen because we're going to wind up completing our objectives and then we're going to wind up probably farming a specific map. Hopefully, one of the maps that we're going to be doing is going to either be the same as what the Orb of Horizon was giving us this league. Probably not, but hopefully at least one of them will be a really good map. You'll pick your favorite, you'll roll your maps to that map, and then that'll be the map that you grind, and you'll be stacking that. So eventually you will be getting a master every single map you complete, which this is huge because this means that we will be able to sustainably use a master mission every single map. That is huge. Another huge bonus. You will now gain 1% increased map mod effects per 6 maps with Awaken bonus objective complete. This is huge too. This is scaling the difficulty and the rewards of the map every single time we complete 6 maps on it once we've done our Awaken bonus. This is a big deal. Like, this is a really big deal because, previously we had this basically like preset scaling, 3% increased effective modifiers on non-unique maps. That basically means that, with all of these in here, we had we had a 24% increase effect to the maps. So every one of these bonuses, basically, we're going to be reaching a breaking point with that after 18 maps. So 18 maps, what would that be? 80, 100, 216, 160, 160. So after 164 maps, playing on the completion bonus, you will have reached a breaking point where you have the same maximum bonus that you could have gotten last season. What does this mean? Everything past that is going to be making the map both harder and more rewarding than it previously was, and there's no cap that they have put on that as of right now. So, because I literally just read to you everything that they said. So the thing that, I mean, hopefully they don't wind up being like, oh, we might have made that really OP because, some people can run hundreds of maps in one gaming session. You're talking about like adding, essentially being able to add a bonus or double the bonus that was previously the maximum potential in like one day. So, yeah, the two sides of that. It's going to create the most insane maps we have ever seen, in unless there's like some point where the buffs are going to cap out at. Um, but the rewards are going to scale so much, it's going to be crazy. My guess is people that wind up farming this really hard are going to wind up having to do this easy map type deal to it to wind up making the maps playable, because like I said, after, say like one gaming session to get all the completion, and then, next gaming session, now you're at a 48% buff, and then every day you're adding 48%. So, in a week, essentially you're going to be over a 300% increase. After 2 weeks, 600%. 3 weeks, 900%. 900% on this, that means I'm going to have a 350% quantity map on a 3 stat map. Like, that's crazy. So my point is we might actually wind up in a place where we're no longer trying to chisel full Alk maps, which, just to let you know, if I just chiseled this and then made an easy map, this would be a 68% map, which then would mean like I'd be like, what, 68, 900%. It'd be like almost 600% quantity. um, so yeah, I mean, we're gonna wind up with such a crazy end game. The mapping is gonna be crazy, crazy, crazy rewarding. But, you know, telling you this now, if they leave it uncapped, you're going to kind of wind up in that position where you're going to wind up wanting easier mods on the map because the mods are going to scale so much, that it's just going to be crazy. I mean, if you have monster life on a map, and which can roll up to 100%, you're talking about a 1,000% monster life. There's going to be some point where, builds are going to kind of cap out. Builds will be way stronger this season than last season, but you're talking about Delirium's going to make it harder, which probably the cluster jewels and the changes will kind of like level that out. But you're talking about basically infinite increases to difficulty and rewards, which is really cool. I really like that idea. Um, but that being said, obviously there's going to be a limit to how far a gear will be able to take it when there's an infinite top to it. Anyways, I think that is pretty much everything to cover. The covered sextants, I believe. Okay, so thing to know about the sextants, they're going to be going from 6, 8, 10 monster packs, because that's the quantity increase, and they're going to be just going down by 2, so it'll be 4, 6, 8. Still super beneficial. Using simple sextants, you can use 9 times as many than the awakened, so you're probably going to want to early, when your currency isn't as big, focus on the simple sextants because they will be worthwhile using. But if you don't have a bunch of extra income, probably not worthwhile to jump right into the awakened until you're actually doing that hardest type content. In fact, sometimes the way that I'll do it is when I'm chisel vault alking maps, I'll, for instance, use my crappier rolls on simple sextants, and I'll save my awakened sextants for the really good rolled maps. That's another way that I do things. Um, Anyways, I think that that pretty much covers everything, all of the changes that are going to be relevant as far as advancing and mapping, and that's pretty much all of the tips that I think I need to give you as far as advancing your atlas. I hope that this is helpful for your start. If you have any extra questions, let me know. Peace.